So this final presentation, I think it's really kind of perfect that we finish off with our full community. It's like I'm letting go of the way things are running. I told Todd, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm on third base and the bases are loaded and we're down to the final inning, the final batter. And it's not depending on one person. It really is like we're getting this home run together. And it's like every one of the people that are going to be on this final hour are dear to me. And we structured this later, so DaNi Spindler wasn't able to join us, but I'll just kind of introduce in order the members of our community. And first of all, I'll tell you, the community is AMillionAtOne. You will see that it is a spelling that is a one-word spelling. It's because there is a cohesiveness in our community that we see in the spelling. And I won't go into the detail about how this all came about. We do not have 1,000,000 meditators. I know that when we combine forces with the other unseen side, it definitely amps up our potential. So when we talk about numbers, sometimes we're including the angelic realm. And they are definitely connected to these wonderful members of our community. The title of this is Unlocking Inner Peace, Insights from a Course in Miracles and Quantum Wholeness Meditation. So our conscious meditators, so what this is basically a community. We meet several times a week. Wednesdays at 4 is a study of A Course in Miracles, Miracles and Meditation. It was actually inspired by Coley Perkins, who wasn't able to join Saturday, but you met her earlier this week. And Friday mornings at 9 a.m., and these are mountain times, we have what's called Divine Connection. And it is basically an intentional prayer type group where we use consciousness to support miracles. So we are meditators. Most of us have been trained. You saw a little earlier, DaNi was talking a little bit in the video. She actually started her connection with us as a community through a couples program. And so my goal is when people go through trainings like liberation training or a couples training, that I want to provide something very inexpensive and very viable to long-term maintenance. And so some of our meditators and community members have been with us for years, and DaNi's an example. So I get to introduce her first. You're going to get to hear from her in a virtual format, but it's a powerful statement that she has about her study of A Course in Miracles. And then we're going to go to Lisa, I believe, and she's one of our newest members. So Lisa Finlinson is someone that we adore having part of our group, and has gone through the full trainings, including the liberation training and frequency school and 0 Point Meridian basic training. And she's going to share what it's like to now be part of the community model. And then we'll also hear from, and I hope I have this in order, from Carlos, who is, he's also a member and actually one of the oldest members, because he actually joined back when I had it in person in Logan at my facility where I had private practice. And then we'll hear from Joanne, who, oh no, she dates back further. We tease that it's not really a tease. It's like an interesting reality that she's not just an old soul or an ancient soul, but a primordial soul. And her consciousness is has so much depth that we found each other through Power of 8 groups. And then we're going to finish off with Julie Obenchain, who is going to teach about the ego and spirit mind. And okay, so I'm going to let you guys take it away. And I am so grateful that you've been able to do this. We want to make sure that people understand that if they purchased a workbook, they have a chance to join either of these groups as just a freebie orientation, like get a feel for what we're about. And some people will be comfortable just joining a group and getting a feel. If anybody's a student of A Course in Miracles, this is an amazing way to
a member in our community about as long as Julie has about more
I am
than 2
going
years.
to start.
Yeah.
So we're going to first hear from DaNi Spindler.
Share my experience really quick and just jump right in. So I was raised pretty conservative Christian. And it totally worked for me, and I'm still a part of my faith. I only say that because a lot of like what we've learned on this summit, I would not have been open to not many years ago. So, and maybe some of you can relate to that as well. But it was 4 years ago that I was just really stuck, and I was so frustrated because I felt, and maybe some of you can relate to this as well. I just felt this bigness inside of me, like that I was supposed to do something great, and my life wasn't bad, but it was so mediocre. Like it was just so mediocre. And for me, that was painful. It was painful to be in this, like, I'm just kind of treading water. I'm just sort of, it's not bad, but it's not amazing. And I know amazing is possible. Like I could feel the potential inside myself. And I don't have time to go into the whole experience, but I had this awareness come to me that I was asking the wrong questions, because I was asking things like, what is wrong with me? Or like asking that I be changed. And I mean, it's good to change, but what came to me was that I was fine the way I was. I didn't need to be changed. And so the question that I was given that I needed to start asking was, what more do I need to know? What more do I need to know about myself? What more do I need to know? And that was the right question. And after I asked that question, things just started dropping into my life. It has been the most amazing 4 years of my life, because once I asked that question and I was open to whatever God had to share with me, like one thing after another, like, and it's still going, it's still happening. It's incredible. So Cristine was one of those things that dropped into my life after I started asking that question. And I'd been on her email list for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. But I would open her emails and be like, it was a little outside my conservative view. And so I wasn't quite ready to hear the things that she was sharing. It was a little too high frequency for me. And so anyway, but after I started asking that question, what more do I need to know? I got an email, and she was doing a virtual summit, much like this one. And I knew I had to attend. I knew I needed to attend. The Spirit made that very clear. And so I attended that virtual summit. I became part of the community, and I started attending A Course in Miracles, or Miracles in Meditation, where we study A Course in Miracles and then we meditate, do a group meditation afterwards. And to kind of go back to my childhood, I was very timid and reserved, and I didn't have a lot of friends as like a preteen and teen. I very much kept to myself, and I would walk my dog for about an hour almost every day around town, and I would just talk to God, because I didn't have friends. So I would tell him about my day, and I would tell him, oh, I'm excited about this, or I'm nervous about this, or, just every little thing that came into my little mind. I just talked to God about it. And so I had a really close relationship with my Heavenly Father. I really felt connected to God, and I felt his love for me. I felt like I knew him, and like the little impressions that would come into my mind as I told him about my day or whatever. And growing up at church, sometimes people would teach things about God in a way that I would kind of be like, that doesn't sound like how I experience God. Like, it just was off just a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and my faith didn't really focus on the angry God of the Old Testament and the vengeful, and I will, destroy you kind of thing if you don't follow my commandments. But even though we focused more on the New Testament, the merciful God and stuff, there were still times when it was taught in such a way of like, but don't make God mad kind of thing. Like, you better keep his commandments or else. There was that little bit of fear that was used to try and get us to stay on the straight and narrow, and so I would hear things like that. And as a youth, like as a young kid, I would just be like, that's not quite like how I have experienced God, but I didn't think much of it. I trusted, my leaders and things like that. And I didn't question it. I just always thought, well, in the next life, God will explain to me and it will all make sense. I'll wait until then. And I didn't really worry about it too much. But I remember as a child having those little that doesn't quite feel right, from what I know of God. And I felt like I had a good relationship with him. So I started attending these miracles and meditation groups, and we started reading A Course in Miracles. And it was the answer. It reconciled all those things that I'd been like, that's weird. Like, that doesn't seem like the God that I know. And A Course in Miracles just explained like why we, or more, our egos, try to assign this guilt and this fear to God. And it just made so much sense, and it reconciled all those things for me. And I have just I've been eating it up. Like, I can't get enough of A Course in Miracles, because it really is like that higher consciousness, like Cristine talked about. So I wanted to read a few quotes from A Course in Miracles with you. And I hope that whatever you're doing, if it's possible, that you will stop doing anything else that you're doing and really just listen to these words and feel how they land with you. And I also think with so many of the things we've been learning over the past few days, hear how these words like reinforce so much of what other speakers have said. I just love, like, A Course in Miracles. There's no fluff. Like, it just gets right. It gets right to the meat. Which is why sometimes it can, like Cristine said, it can be overwhelming and like, whoa, this is too much. But when you're ready for some meat, like, this is the meat. So anyway, put down what you're doing. I'm just going to read these quotes with you. And if you want to take screenshots, you can, and really ponder on them later. But it was so hard to pick my favorites, but these were a handful of the ones that I felt like needed to be shared today. So this first one: you made neither yourself nor your function. You made only the decision to be unworthy of both. Yet you cannot make yourself unworthy, because you are the treasure of God, and what he values is valuable. That's just so powerful. Like, this all-powerful God, if he says you're valuable, end of story, period, the end. So I love that. Okay, this one. You are altogether irreplaceable in the mind of God. No one else can fill your part in it, and you cannot replace yourself. God, who knows your value, would not have it so, and so it is not so. To accept yourself as God created you cannot be arrogance, because it is the denial of arrogance. To accept your littleness is arrogant, because it means that you believe your evaluation of yourself is truer than God's. Thank you, Cristine. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. Okay, next one. And somebody else mentioned something like this. I was like, ooh, that's perfect for this quote. Truth does not struggle against ignorance, and love does not attack fear. What needs no protection does not defend itself. Defense is of your making. God knows it not. Like, truth and love are just, they have no opposite. Like Cristine read earlier, they have no opposite. They don't need to defend themselves. They don't need to like attack and counterattack. And like, that's all us. That's all our egos. God is just this peaceful, quiet, like, none of your illusions can change what is true or what is love. So we need to stop feeling like we need to be so defensive. When you have seen this real world, as you will surely do, so it's a guarantee, you will surely see it, you will remember us. Yet you must learn the cost of sleeping and refuse to pay it. I'm going to say that again. Yet you must learn the cost of sleeping and refuse to pay it. Only then will you decide to awaken, and then the real world will spring to your sight, for Christ has never slept. So beautiful. All right. And
All right, that was DaNi. Now we're moving on to Lisa. So, Christy, you want to fill in the blanks there?
I didn't share this right before DaNi was referring to the preamble or the introduction to A Course in Miracles, which if there's time, we might read it at the end. So we'll come back to that.
Okay.
I guess it's my turn.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. I met Cristine, or was introduced to her and her things in just this last July. And prior to July, I was hiding from the world, and I was hiding from myself. In fact, DaNi, oh, she's such a great, I love her. But what she just talked about was some awarenesses that have come to me over the time, is that I was keeping myself small and little. I had, with the things in my past, I had just decided that I was going to accept and be content with my world, which at that point was better than what I had been before, which was very angry at the world. And so I felt at peace with that, because I had gone from anger to just, you know what, I'll just accept that this is what my world is, and I'll be content and happy. And I was. But I was introduced to, I attended one of these summits in July and was just fascinated by the information. A lot of it was information that I've learned over the last 20 years that I've been introduced to, but have never really embraced and gone with in my life. And it was Dr. Carey. She was the very last person on this particular summit. And what she was saying pierced my soul. I cried through her whole presentation, and it was about lying to yourself. And I knew that I was lying to myself, that I was content, that I was happy, that this was all I needed to do. And I had this huge awakening that I was meant to be more than what I was telling myself I was meant to be. And so I jumped right in to the next summit, which started in September. I talked with Cristine, and she said, well, you can do payments and all this. And I said, nope, I'm just paying for the whole thing. I'm just going to do this. And from that day forward, the day that I just jumped in and said, I'm doing this. And it was such a wonderful experience of learning and growth and remembering. A lot of it was just remembering myself, remembering things I'd learned over the years. And it was just a transformation. I did a transformation. But towards the end of it, I took a dive. I took a dive back into wanting to be back in my smallness, wanting to be, to just feel that comfort that I had embraced for so long. But this community and the weekly meetings and talking with Cristine and different things, I kept a tether on it and just kept on thinking, no, there's something there. I know what I felt before, and I want that back, and I'm going to just keep on hanging on. And through that, and through just attending and getting to know such wonderful people and the journeys that they are going on and the hardships they have had, it's given me this strength to embrace all of this new awareness and not, well, it's that journey. And I'm still, I'm on this journey, and I'm at a place where I need to be right now. And so with the community, at first I was very hesitant to participate in the Course of Miracles. I have owned that book for 25 years. It has sat on my shelf. I have never read it. And, so opening it up and looking at it, it's very, very intimidating. The wording, the depth of what's there is just very intimidating. So I was hesitant at first, and there were a couple of times that I made contributions to what was being talked about and then felt stupid because of what I was hearing from everybody else, that was so insightful and had a depth that it spoke to me. And I thought, I don't have anything to say for this group. But as time has gone on and as I have just been willing to keep pushing through, I've learned that even in my beginning state, even in this new journey that I'm on, I have something to contribute. That we all have something to contribute. And by my being willing to share where I'm at and be vulnerable, there has been wonderful growth and a feeling of being supported. I've never really been a part of a community because I've kept myself away from being, because I didn't want to be seen. And Beck, this is very hard for me to do this, but I'm stepping out because I know I have something to do in this world. And I know I have something to contribute, and I want to. I'm a very service-minded person, and I know that that's who I am. So I love the meditations. It's really nice to be meditating and to be serving others with my thoughts and my intention. It's very fulfilling to have that. And I know that it's a community that I feel supported and loved, and it's something that helps me stay connected to all the things I've learned, as well as it gives me the opportunity to learn more. And that's my story. Thanks.
That was so well done. I am going to applaud you. You are a huge contribution, Lisa. I want to give you honor for coming out of your shell and for being honest. So I have to tell you, so Lisa did the 4-month program. That's what she was referring to. And she knew she had to invest in it fully because of her pattern, to break her pattern. And I expected it might come up. And at 3 months, it did. And she was honest when she filled out her assessments. And it showed that she'd gone back to start, as far as like her progress went backwards. And I held it, and she was kind of like, it was still a really good program, thank you. And I'm like, oh no, you get to get through this. This is your moment. And she stuck it out. And the 4th month that she was in that program, I think she might have gotten extra time anyway, but she did the work. And I watched her study, and I watched her push through and get back to her previous, to the gains that she'd achieved and then some. And so that's what it's about, is about breaking those patterns. And I will say, I think that a lot of what we do is at a 600 frequency, which is that highest frequency that I'm familiar with. I haven't done a lot with the 700, but I know that what we create in these groups is at that level, and it's a huge part of the solution. And I have to also affirm that, yes, A Course in Miracles, I've heard, is the book, the kind of like enlightenment book that is the most purchased, least read. And that's a huge reason why we do our groups, because it gets us back there, kind of like a yoga class. How many of you do yoga at home? Not too much, but when your class is, and you're going to get it done. So, all right. Thank you. And I'm going to give it back to Joanne, or to Carlos, I think is actually our next up.
Hello. Thank you, Cristine. Thank you, everybody. Great event. What a nice way to conclude everything. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say, yeah, Cristine's changed my life, and in every possible way. And the great story about my journey to discover the Course in Miracles was this: is I had met Cristine and purchased the book right in the middle of my spiritual journey to where I am now. And of course, it's always evolving and growing and changing, but hopefully. And on my path to enlightened living, I bought the book, did not recall I bought the book. And throughout the next several years, I had another mentor who kept sending me A Course in Miracles audio. And so I began listening to the course, and I began studying the course years. It was probably a couple years after I'd first purchased the book and met Cristine. Now, I had forgotten that I had purchased the book and met Cristine until about 5 years later. After that time, I had discovered that I had the book. I had read the book. I had listened to the audio, which Cristine wants me to kind of talk about that experience. Probably at that time, it's 11 hour and 33-minute audio if you're listening to the complete version on YouTube. Probably more than 10 times at that point. And that was really important for me, because sometimes when you pick up the text and you start to read the ancient tongue and language, the actual beautiful poetry that Christ speaks through the Course in Miracles, it can be, definitely confusing, and it can definitely be overwhelming, and it can be hard to understand. And so what had happened for me as a result of listening to the audio is I began, I felt it. I felt it was doing the work. The Course talks about the undoing of the mind, the correction of our thought system. For me, it was a deprogramming of, the ego mind identity, that then put me in a position where, when I read the book and the course and did the workbook for students and the manual for teachers now multiple times, I had a listening. My brain had been, reorganized to a point where I could begin to live the course. I don't know that I was able to live the course just through the audios, although it felt good and it was soothing. So I went through a long period of time in my development where the material was the soothing tool in my life that I used to find and feel peace. And so I really only truly felt peace when I was listening to, and then attempting for the hours afterwards to be in that space, of no mind, of no thought, where my mind was quiet. And so I'll just fast forward to complete the story. About 5 years, 6 years after that, about 5 years after that meeting with Cristine in her office where I purchased the book, Cristine ended up in my kitchen on another matter through her husband, Todd. And I re-met Cristine through her husband, Todd. And as she was standing there and saw the book sitting on my counter, this exact book, all marked and tattered, it both in a holy instant, we both remembered who we were and who each other was, and that we had met, and that she was actually the original person that attempted to bring the course into my life. And so since then, we have been mighty companions on an incredible journey of health and healing and discovery. And she's, for me, is one of the most loving and generous and compassionate people that has ever come into my experience. And so I'm just forever grateful for that. It's just my goal is to carry that which was so freely given to me and bless the world with that level of generosity and kindness and compassion and hope. Because I come out of being in the health and wellness industry as a profession for the last 25 years. And so now, being in a new world, in this new time, in this new place, I have all the tools to be my best version of myself today. And that is a result of everything that the course has done for me and through me. And, my world got really small for quite some time as I was being prepared for this next chapter in my life. And the only reason I'm able to be 100% present for what's going on in my life today is because of the consistent work. And I will talk about this if you're looking at this maybe for the first time, or you're hearing this on replay, or you have never opened the book or the course. The course will have different meaning for you at different times in your life. And there'll be times in your life where, it almost becomes, they talk about it in one of the chapters, or maybe it's in the manual for teachers, where the aim of the course was not to have it be a cult following. The aim in the course was not for it to become a religion in itself. The aim of the course was simply the course and your personal experience with it. And that the course should not be idolized, or it should not be the only thing. And so what I found for myself as I've moved further down my spiritual path, that the course has become more of a toolbox at times that I'm able to access, especially through the miracles and meditation group, where it's actually quite nice right now, because it does hold me accountable for continuing to open the course, because I have moved on to some other types of spiritual practices and meditations that are outside of the course, that is just part of my phase of my own development. And so that's why I think the miracles and meditation is so powerful, is because for me right now, it keeps me in the Word, and it keeps me remembering, and it keeps me continuing to look, even though it's not part of my daily practice right now, to pick up the course and do maybe I will do a several times a month, a lesson out of the workbook for students, but it's not quite the same because I'm at a different stage. So that's just a little bit about my experience, how I met Cristine, and how I re-met Cristine, and now we're working on other projects and a lot of different humanitarian projects. And it's just an absolute blessing in all regards. So that's what I have.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me still?
You're welcome.
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
you're-
you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Carlos. And you do know you made the book, right? Book 2. So we did release the book Being at Zero, which includes some of our community members. But the book coming out this year is Trusting as One. And it includes Carlos, it includes like more of our group consciousness within it. And so, okay. So Joanne, you're up.
Hi. All right. So you guys know me because I've been popping in and out of the chat. But real quick, for those who don't know, I live on the East Coast. You guys are all mountain. I met Christy at the tail end of 2018 into 2019. I had signed up for Lynn McTaggart's masterclass. But I have a habit of testing the waters before I go into anything. So I wanted to know what a Power of 8 group was. And, Lynn McTaggart, being who she is she wanted to know what the power of intention was. So she did lots of experiments, and she calls them experiments. They're not really, she doesn't like calling them experiments, but she did a lot of test runs with it to see what a group of people, even strangers coming together, and what their power of intention could really be. Now, when I came into Christy's realm of into her sphere, if you want to call it, once our spears hit, I guess you could say, she was doing intention groups. She had 2 intention groups, one on a Friday, and I think the other one was on a Monday. So I began my week with her, and then I ended my week with her. But what Christy doesn't know, or what was later shared, was she had, during these Power of 8 groups, it was a 3-layer meditation. First layer was for ourselves. We intended for ourselves. Then we intended for another within the group, which was the second layer. And then you had the third layer, which was the community layer, which was what we intended for those within For Christy, it was within the Cache Valley. And then she always had that 1 minute that she either shared it with the creator, which was Lynn McTaggart. Sometimes it was Helen Schuckman for Course of Miracles. But at that time, she was also looking at the power of intention to reduce the suicide rate in Cache Valley. And I think for people, I actually put my essay, The Miracle of the 1%, in there. And I kind of talk about this, how when a group of people decide to come together in a cohesive, coherent unit, you'd be surprised how things just drop. Crime rate drops, a lot of things drop. And we were making an impact for the suicide rate in Cache Valley. But I don't know what the impact was in my area because I wasn't checking that. But all I know is that this is the way I was going to be of service. And around that time, because Chrissy calls me a primordial soul, and it's actually pretty much true. I call myself a homebody soul. I'm using that new term because I've done everything I've ever wanted to do. I've been everything. And for me, I prefer to be in the source of all creation, staying there, housed there for eons. I don't want to leave home. But at a very young age, and this is what a lot of the meditations brought up for me, at a very young age, I've noticed that I was like, I would tell my parents, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. They would bring me to the physical location, whether that's an apartment complex or a home or something like that. And I would keep telling them, I want to go home. And they're like, you're home. They couldn't understand what I was trying to get at. And with all these meditations, the realization came to me was that my home wasn't the physical building that I was in. My home was the source of all creation, which I wanted to go back to, because I also realize and recognize that me in a physical form is not easy for me. Why? Because my home was the source of all creation. There was no form back there. And because I was housed there for so long, like I'm the other way I liken myself is as an introvert. I'm an introverted soul, so a lot of introverts are homebodies, and you'll notice this in your personality. You don't want to go out. You don't want to leave your house. But for me, I didn't want to leave the source of creation. But when creation asks you, "Hey, can you do this for me?" I wasn't going to say no, but I also didn't know what I was signing up for. And then when I finally get here, I'm like, this is what I signed up for. This is what I said yes to. But I mean, obviously, those souls that are housed within the source of all creation, there are other souls who are, coming and going. I call them the extroverted souls. They're out there having adventures, bringing back the information, and we're sources of information. And when the source of all creation asks the homebodies to go out, it's because there's a pivotal moment within the field of consciousness itself that he's asking us to change. And he wouldn't ask us to go out unless he knew that we were already masters at that which he was asking us to do. So I have, like I said, in my experience, this is what I've noticed. And there was a pivotal moment that I'm going to share with you. I'm just going to throw this out there. That the longing from home was so strong that I got to that exit. I knew I was nearing the exit. And I sat down with my soul and I'm like, listen, we can't keep doing what we've been doing because we're not going to make it. So we either take the exit now, or we find out what we're really here to do. Now, disclaimer, I did not want to hurt myself. There was no thought of me committing suicide at any time throughout my whole entire life. It was never a thought in my mind that, I wanted to end my life and go back home. No, that wasn't even a contemplation in my field of awareness. That came from society saying, whenever I expressed, hey, I want to go home, I don't want to be here, they took it as I wanted to end my life. But no, that was never it. But then again, how could someone else understand what it means to want to go home when they themselves don't know what home is? So I'm putting that out there because I know there's a lot of people who have similar experience of like that longing to want to go home, and they don't understand it. And the stories that society puts around that, it's not accurate. It was never about us ending our lives. It's just that the warmth from home was the greatest thing that we ever knew. And also the simple fact that we were asked to come out here, that love that he has for us, that he knew that we were already masters to accomplish that thing that he's asking us to do, was also, it is so great that I have no words to describe it. So I'm here today because of that. I'm here today also because I have a community, regardless of how much I interact. There are some times where I'm kind of like contemplative when I'm in groups, but they're there and I can reach out at any point in time and say, hey, this is what's going on. And I have done so. We have cried many tears during the meetings. But I mean, I can go on and on. But for those who are looking for that type of support, that type of community, just to know that there are people there that have an understanding, or maybe it can help you, bring you to a deeper understanding of who you really are. That is why we are here. That is why we do what we do. That's why I, very similar to Lisa, I wanted to serve in a certain sort of way, but not in the front end. I am a back end person. I prefer to serve without people knowing that I'm serving. And that's another reason why I do meditation, and why I find that it's my responsibility for the 100 yards around me. And how I step forward in life is how I step forward in everything I do. And I never step forward without first checking with myself to know that I am going to be of service that day. Okay, Christy, I'm sorry. I know I went a little bit longer. I do apologize.
Thank you. No, that was so beautiful. Todd's commenting over here. This is powerful. It's awesome. Thank you. Did you ever see yourself as powerful, Joanne?
No, I never. Like I said, when I step forward to serve, and however that service the form it takes, it's completely up to that. Completely up to whatever is happening at that time.
Spiritual power. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Julie, you get to take us home. This is going to be a home run, guys. You did
it. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so basically, we've talked about fulfillment, and today it's been about our divine connection, and I've really appreciated all the different comments today. There's been a lot of really powerful things. Joanne, if you go to the next slide, I want to touch on, Course in Miracles is this huge book, but basically what it comes down to is that it teaches us who we are as divine beings, as children of God, as being loved fully by Him, or however you see God. And it teaches us what is real and what is false. And most of what we attach meaning to, most of what we believe, is really false things appearing real. And basically the other thing it teaches is love is the only thing that really matters. Everything else in our life is insignificant. And that's what A Course in Miracles really boils down to. But it points out how our thoughts and our emotions are tied really to our sense of identity. So when we say, I am this, or I feel this, I can't, or I can only be successful or happy if this happens, or I have to have this to complete my identity. An example of that, I was working with some teenage clients a while back, and one of them said, I have to have a boyfriend to complete my identity. And I looked at her and said, why is that? And she says, well, I'm just not complete. I'm not whole without having somebody else. And I'm like, no, you are whole as you are, who you are. And it has nothing to do with that other person. In fact, when you're with that other person, you are taking on their identity. And she was dumbfounded by that. But we tend to base our happiness and our identity on our circumstances. And there's almost always, with our thoughts and emotions, there's some sense of identity, and it's usually I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not successful, you name it. But we measure ourselves by that, by those thoughts and beliefs. So for a moment, I'd like you to just contemplate who God says you are. And with that, if you think about Jesus Christ, he had many titles that he used. He was living water, he was breath of life, and so on. And when the devil came to tempt him, if you remember the story, it wasn't just about, wanting food or power or anything else. The first thing the devil tempted him with was, well, if you're a son of God, then you can do this. If you're the son of God, you can do that. But it all was tied to his sense of identity. And so think about that for just a moment. What does God say about you? Who does he say you are? And what titles or names does he give you? And what do those titles or names say about your purpose? So just take just a moment, think about that, and see what comes to mind. And while you're thinking about that, a couple of quotes from A Course in Miracles. It says, the mind activates creative energy, whether positive or negative. A Course in Miracles refers to the two aspects of the mind as ego and spirit. The mind can be right or wrong, depending on which voice it listens to. Right-mindedness listens to the Holy Spirit, forgives the world, and through Christ's vision, sees the real world in its place. This is the final vision, the last perception, the condition in which God takes the final step himself. I can't read that last part of it. There's a picture in the way. But basically, right-mindedness, looking at the world through, and then wrong-mindedness listens to the ego and makes illusions, perceiving sin and justifying anger and seeing guilt, disease, and death as real. Both this old and the real world are illusions, because right-mindedness merely overlooks or forgives what never happened. Therefore, it is not the one-mindedness of the Christ mind, whose will is one with God's. And that's super powerful. I love that. And here's a list of comparisons of the ego mind versus the spirit mind. So you can have, the ego mind creates illusion, where the spirit mind is real. A false identity versus a child of God. You feel alone versus connected. You feel fear versus trust, and so on. I'll let you look at those and see the comparison, and see in your own minds how you can connect in that spirit mind. And to share this perspective of identity, well, I grew up in a large family with an authoritarian father, and with all the dynamics of this family, I felt invisible, like I didn't exist. And all through school, I kind of had that invisibility complex of not fitting in, not being a part of things, always being kind of on the outside looking in. And about 10 years ago, I started this journey of, I started with some different life coaches, with Kurt Duncan and Leslie Householder, and there were several others. And this brought me into the world with Cristine. And through that process, I have learned how to become more spirit-minded. And it's still a process. But as I've worked with DaNi and Joanne and with Lisa and various others, I have watched them transform through the ZPM techniques, through meditation, through various techniques. I've watched them transform and step more into that spirit mind, which is powerful and beautiful to watch. So with that, I've been asked to introduce our Divine Connection meeting, and that's on Fridays at 9 a.m. Or Mountain Time. I know that there are some people from other time zones, but it's Fridays at 9 a.m. And what we do is we start with an exercise from A Course in Miracles. And these exercises are very simple. The last ones were things like, the things around me have no meaning. And, we just do a little bit of an exercise with that. Then we have a meditation or a visualization. We share thoughts and experiences, miracles, successes. And then we have a purposeful prayer. And it's specific and we're united in intention and purpose. And if we have time, we discuss what comes up with us with that. I find those very powerful because when we unite in prayer, we unite in power. And some of the most powerful prayers that I have experienced have been when I've been praying with a group of people for a specific purpose. And so I find that these Divine Connection meetings are very powerful and they just are a highlight of my week. And I love hearing the experiences of others related to that. So this is just a quick overview of a few of the things that come up from the handbook. Things like, I give meaning to everything I see in this room or in this space. These thoughts don't mean anything. I am never upset for the reasons I think, which is powerful. When you think about, okay, I'm upset about this, but is that really what's going on? No, it usually isn't. And as I've done sessions with people, we start with, well, I'm afraid of this, or I'm working on this. But then as we go, it becomes something totally different. And so I find that that's true. What we think is the issue really isn't at the root of it. But so there's just a few things that are examples from the handbook that we just talk about a little bit, and we do exercises from. For this one, we're going to just take a minute or two. One of the exercises is, God is in everything that I see, everything. Looking at whatever is around you, or thinking about whatever experiences you are experiencing in life, and just thinking, God is in this. God is in this chair. God is in this dog. God is in this experience. He's in this TV, this bush outside. Think about that for a moment and just acknowledge that God is there in whatever is around you. And how does that change your awareness and your perception of those things? So just take a moment for that.
We're at the top of the hour already. If you want to just jump in and get a membership, it's very inexpensive memberships. They're $22 to start. And that actually allows for joining either group. And I believe that's going up to $44 after March 7th. And so we want to encourage you to jump in while the opportunity is available. And so we do have a higher level, but you can ask questions about that when you're joining. And
Okay.
so, yes, this is an example of the Friday. And so I clarified the difference between the two groups, slight difference with where we study in A Course in Miracles and how we utilize that consciousness together.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And with that, we'll wrap up with, I'm giving away a copy of a book that I've written. It's kind of a beta book. It hasn't been edited yet, so be aware of that. And Joanne can put the link to that for Awakening Your Divine Identity. It's a beginner course in bringing yourself to understanding your identity better.
I think it would be amazing to just go through that preamble to end with that. And I've got my book here. And the introduction says, "This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way.
Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. And I think that was our home run. Love you. Thank you so much. All the participants, the presenters, it's been amazing. And please stay in touch with us in one of those ways we've listed. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Great job, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.